So this month our theme is on camping, and I was in Scouts once, and when I was in Scouts we did do a lot of camping. Our troop was the 57th Scout Troop. We met at the Grantham Optimus Hall right across the street, and there are some camps where we had a lot of bad weather, so we had a saying: anyone can camp in the good weather. It takes a scout from the 57th to camp in the bad weather. Most camps were during the school year and were weekend events. But every year, during the first full week of summer camp, of summer vacation, we would go up north to Haliburton for a week of summer camp. There we'd canoe to all of the various fun and informative events we were scheduled for on all of the various islands on the lake. We'd go kayaking, shooting, scuba dive, snorkeling, and rappelling, which was my favorite event. And we learned about survival in the wilderness, either through trapping or just general survival. The first and third year I went, the weather was beautiful every single day. When we had free time, we'd swim out in Kenobi Lake as much as we could. It was so nice to be able to swim in a lake without worrying about coming out with a 6 toe or something. Those were the years where anyone could camp. In my second year there, things were different. It rained every day. One particular bad day, we had the campsite in danger of flooding. So all of the leaders had to try and dig the water out of the campsite. So they were there working away, digging the trench, and Dan was there, in our congregation. And he was watching the leaders dig away, and he was looking, thinking, contemplating. And then he took a stick and put a line in the campground, and the water just instantly whooshed away. It's always good to have an engineer in your camp. That year, it was cold and rainy every single day, except for 2. The first day when we got there, we were in our scout uniforms to set up the camp, and that day it was very sunny and blisteringly hot. Remember, we were in our scout uniforms. And of course, the day we left, the sun came out just as we were leaving the camp. I think that was a year that we proved that we were 57 Scouts. Now up here in Canada, bad weather is usually defined as having too much water coming. The people of Israel had the opposite problem when they camped out in the desert. Now last week Sherry mentioned that eventually that the supplies they brought out from Egypt with them would run out. Now I would imagine that the desert people would probably make sure to prioritize water over food when they were leaving. After all, you can survive much longer without food than you can without water. But, you still wouldn't have an infinite supply of it, and eventually that would run out as well. And when it does run out, just like with the food, the Israelites grumble and complain. And once again, they want to go back to Egypt. Once again, God provides for them. He tells Moses to strike at a rock, and from that rock, the water comes gushing out. Again, put this into perspective. The Israelites had just seen God visit 10 plagues upon the Egyptians. They had seen God lead them out of Egypt through the Red Sea, and then drown the pursuing Egyptian army by means of that same sea. They were constantly seeing God guide them through a pillar of smoke by day and a pillar of fire by night. When they did grumble about food, they saw God provide for them every single day by means of the miraculously occurring manna and quail. And now they were facing a bigger and more urgent crisis: lack of water. And even with all the evidence of their past, they still couldn't trust God. Now, Contrast that with their attitude after being freed from Egypt. After God delivered the people from the Egyptians, closing the Red Sea on Pharaoh's army, the people erupted into spontaneous praise of their God. Free at last, thank God Almighty, we're free at last. They had just seen God perform mighty works on their behalf, and it was easy for them not only to have faith in God, but to erupt in spontaneous praise. In Exodus 15, there's a huge hymn of praise that covers the entire chapter. You know, on those good weather camps, I really enjoyed being out there. Sure, there was a lot of work to be done, and some assorted laziness on the part of some of us. I like to think that I wasn't lazy, but I didn't and still don't have a lot of upper body strength, so a lot of things were kind of difficult. And that could be attributed to laziness in other areas of my life. It was a lot of work, but on the whole, being there was very fun. We always had fun events, got to hang out with each other, and we learned some really fun songs. Like I said, it was not easy. It was easy not only to just camp, but to enjoy it. I think we all have great experiences in life where we are extremely grateful to God. And these are the times when we see something positive in our lives as the hand of God working, and that could just set our hearts to dancing. Maybe a medical test came back negative. Maybe you finally found that dream job, special person to spend the rest of your life with, had a new baby. All these great things that can happen. Life is full of good experiences, and in those it is easy to give praise to our God. But when times got tough for the children of Israel, they grumbled and quarreled with Moses. In fact, it didn't take too long. The first story in Exodus, after that hymn of praise I mentioned, is a story where the Israelites go to get water from a stream, and they grumble about the bitter water. God provides for them there as well, turning the water sweet. And when they run out of food and water, they cry out again to go back to Egypt, convinced that God is leading them to die in the desert. Times are tough, and they're finding it difficult to trust in God to provide. Whenever I went on a rainy camp, it wasn't as easy to enjoy as the sun ones. The first camp I went on, it rained, and contrary to the Scout motto, I was unprepared for it. I probably should have brought extra clothes. Instead, I spent most of Saturday soaked to the bone. It was a weekend camp. I did learn my lesson and was better prepared for future camps. Still, the rainy weather camps were not nearly as fun as the nice ones. And I did still get sick on my first winter camp. Sometimes times get tough for all of us. Maybe you get seriously ill. Maybe someone you love passes away far too young. Maybe you or your kids spent 4 years in post-secondary education hoping to get a good job at the end of it and come out with a mountain of debt and no job. Or if there is a job, it's a low-end minimum wage job that you could have gotten right out of high school. Maybe you were just shortly away from retirement and lost your job due to a layoff or company restructuring. And those are the times when it is really, really hard to trust God. It becomes very easy to grumble. Here's the good news. God does not abandon us when we have difficulty trusting. God remains faithful, even when we are faithless. That's why most of the Psalms of lamentation end in some form of praise, or at least a statement of comfort. When the Israelites grumbled for water, God did not abandon them. He used it as an opportunity to show his greatness. He brought forth water from solid rock. Even on those camping trips where the weather wasn't good, I still have great memories and some great stories. On one particular trip, we were all canoeing to the kayaking event on the other side of the lake, and then thunder sounded. You don't want to be out in the middle of the lake when a lightning storm occurs. So we all had to get off at the nearest island, wherever that might be. We hid under an abandoned picnic bench as the rain poured and poured down. I was not a happy camper, and I did begin to grumble. You might say I was a little quarrelsome. Luckily, we found that not far from us was another campsite with a Dutch Scout troop. They kindly took us in until the rain subsided, and we became good friends with them, singing songs, getting to know each other in the rain. Even in the darkest moments of our lives, God is with us. Even when times get tough, God still loves us. I'm not preaching any sort of gumball machine theology of a Santa Claus God here, nor am I saying that every bad thing that happens is for a reason. And I'm certainly not saying that we should never bring our concerns to God. In fact, just the opposite. If the Israelites had said to Moses, "The people are thirsty. Please ask the Lord to bring us water," I don't think that would be an example of faithfulness. The faithlessness, rather. But faithfulness in trusting God to provide. So what I am saying is that we should bring our concerns to God every moment in a spirit of faithfulness, knowing that God does care about us. As I said earlier, our scout troop had a saying: anyone can camp in the good weather, but it takes a scout from the 57th to camp in the bad weather. I'd like to give us another saying: anyone can have faith in God when things are going well. It takes a person of great faith to trust in God in the difficult times. Let us all have that great faith. Amen.